ana e ngā reo, whakarauka mai ki tēnei kaupapa o mātou, tēnei hōtaka o Spillin Tī with Rangatahi. So kia ora all, thank you for joining us tonight on Spillin Tī with Rangatahi. I'm really fortunate to share space, share energy with two amazing rangatahi who I won't hold any of their time up, but I'll let them actually share what they want to share about themselves and their own respective journeys. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge them first and foremost, and also acknowledge kua tatu mai a mahuru Māori, mo te ruanga o tēnei marama, kua takoto te manuka, kia whakaputa i te reo rangatira rawatu, ahakoa kei te kōrero koe mo te marama katoa, tētahi wiki o te marama, tētahi rā o tētahi wiki o tēnei marama, tēnei te mihi nui kia koutou e whakawhanake ana i tō tātou reo rangatira. So I just wanted to do a little mihi te mahuru Māori. That's an awesome kaupapa that was spearheaded by Praone Gloin. And yeah, let's get going with this kōrero. So let's get going, and maybe we'll just start off with some introductions. Kōwai kōrua.
Yeah, I can start. So, kia ora. My name is Louise Hutt. I'm running for the mayoralty of Hamilton and for a Hamilton West seat on council. I grew up in Whangmataa, and my family is from Ngarawahia and from Tamaki Makaurau. So, family's quite spread out, I guess.
Yeah.
But still in the North Island and still not too far away from where I spent my childhood. And then I came to Kōrero to do a Bachelor of Media and Creative Technologies and stayed long enough to do a Master's.
Cool. Thank you so much, Louise.
Kia ora, Louise. Tēnā tātou i te whānau, kua roika mai nei, e te tuahine nau I whakarite tēnei pō, tēnei te mihi, kia koe hoki taku tuahine, Louise. So excited for you and your candidacy as well for Mayor of Hamilton City, of Kōrero. So just want to mihi to you both respected women who I look up to and draw inspiration from. So yeah, really privileged to be sitting here sipping some tea with you. So ko waiaho, ko Cassidy Temese tōku ingoa, hiuri tēnei no mani o poto waikato me ngā puhi hoki. Yeah, so my name's Cassidy and I'm standing in the Awamutu Ward for the Waipa District Council. Born and bred, raised on a farm, went to Awamutu College, then eventually went to the University of Waikato. I work as a health promoter for Te Ahurea Rangatahi, which is a Māori youth organisation based in Hamilton but servicing the wider Waikato, and really passionate about rangatahi, so yeah, grateful to be here.
Kia ora, and I'm equally inspired by both your fellas mahi. There seems to be a bit of a wave coming up, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So first off, I just wanted to ask you both, why did you decide to stand for local body elections? So we'll start off with you, Louise.
Oh gosh, where to start? I mean, I've been somebody who's kind of been involved in, or at least watched central politics for quite a while. I'm a member of the Green Party of Aotearoa, and so I worked in the last general election for them, and that really showed me a lot of the inside of what a campaign looks like, and how you can kind of get a grassroots or a flex roots movement of people looking to change the status quo of what politics is. And then I followed the last local body election, and it was just so bleak in terms of like people who I felt really passionate about representing me. I really came up quite short, and so knowing that there was a movement in Kōrero to get more women to stand and more diverse women, making sure that our voices were heard, and also from a youth perspective as well. The median age in Hamilton is 32.
Wow.
And we have nobody under the age of 40 on council. Yeah.
I'm a some take that one.
And so for me it was about, I spent a few months asking my friends, like, are you going to run? Are you going to run? Like, who can I get in behind, you know, to support with whatever mahi they were doing? And unfortunately, all my friends were like, oh no, for whatever reason they weren't running. And so I decided that, well, you know, I can't go around hassling all my friends to do it if I'm not willing to do it myself.
Wow.
And so I decided that we needed to change what we were talking about in this election as well. I really didn't want to see the same kind of discussions happening where we're not talking about inequality, we're not talking about climate change, we're not talking about the way that our city is poorer for a lack of diversity. And so I really thought about what would be the most effective way of changing that discussion. And I got some friends around and they were like, you running for mayor. That's the most, like, you know, strategic way of changing that conversation. And so I was like, okay.
Wow.
But I really wanted to run for council as well because I feel like it gives people options. You know, you're not saying if you want me there, you can only vote for me for mayor. And I've lived in Hamilton West for a while now, and I think that there's this perception that we always get good candidates for Hamilton East. And I was sort of like, ooh, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I want to kind of balance what we consider good candidates standing on the West as well, and making sure that people have options no matter where they live.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sorry, that was really long.
No, it was awesome. I'd rather it be, no, it's not even long-winded, just passionate, filled with about the authenticity of it too, which I think is really important. And a little bit, I do feel like we, as Māori, as minorities, we're totally underrepresented in all forms of governance. So it's awesome to see a wahine, first and foremost, a young wahine standing up and actually wanting to be a part of the discussion, because that's what we need, even if it's just a much needed discussion about change, you know, because I think for too long we've been banging on the doors and saying we need this, but you're actually a part of it, you both are, which leads me to your whakaaro, my darling.
Ooh, okay, so my candidacy, so I guess if we track back a bit to last year, I was privileged to be a part of Tuia Te Here Tangata, which is, I hate calling it a program, but it's a kaupapa that is funded and supported under the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, which sits under Local Govt New Zealand. So I was the Rangatahi representative that was sponsored and supported by the Waipa District Council last year to attend different wānanga with other Rangatahi representatives from other district and city councils around the motu. So I had the support of my Mayor, Mayor Jim Milcrest, but also of our iwi Relations Officer Shane Turuki. So very privileged to have that experience, support from our council, to go out and meet with other like-minded rangatahi who were leading community-driven initiatives, or marae-driven kaupapa, and getting an insight into how council can be actively engaging in positive partnership with Māori, but it also highlighted to me the importance of having, as you were speaking about earlier, Louise, the diversity and inclusion within the decision-making table. So for me, it really was about making a stand back home. So a lot of people were like, oh, why not Hamilton Council? And I'm like, well, for me, Waipa will always be home. That's where my tupuna are from since the beginning, and it's really where I see myself like setting up for the rest of my life. That's where I see myself.
Awesome.
It's going to be home for me forever. And I feel a deep sense of responsibility and duty to ensure that the Waipa can be a sustainable home for not just myself and my whānau, but for everyone who calls it home now. And so we have many people, a very diverse community within the Waipa, and it's really about elevating the importance of using your voice to influence positive transformative change, and bringing in those different perspectives and lived experiences to help shape what success can look like. So that's and also, you know, I guess in the same sense of positive pressure and encouragement from friends, whānau, to I guess take that next step in my life journey. So,
Thank you. Well spoken, both of you. And to you, darling, I could totally relate to in a sense. Earlier this year, Gemma Major, our mutual friends of all of ours, approached me, and she was like, "Hey, what do you think about standing for local elections?" And I truly said, I wouldn't feel right standing in this whenua. This isn't like, though I have whakapapa or genealogical ties to this land, my draw card and my calling will always be back home in Whakatane. So stay tuned. But seriously, I just want to acknowledge both of your whakaaro and I guess the defining moments in your respective journeys to lead you to where you are now. So congratulations for taking the leap. Very inspirational, and also to the other rangatahi who are out there pumping it, all the best. I'll be advocating for you all. Which leads me to our next partai, guys. Why do we think rangatahi representation is so important and necessary?
I'll lead for Okay, all right. So, drawing on inspiration from the current role that I play as a health promoter within sexual health for Te Ahurea Rangatahi, it's very evident to me within the communities, the schools and the areas that I engage with, which the majority of our focus and scope is lower decile, higher deprivation communities, that issues that are deeply affecting our society, they're intergenerational, and for me it's really about empowering rangatahi voices that are vulnerable right now, in order to inform positive policy change that will actually prevent that from happening in the future. And it really comes back, for me as a health promoter, my interpretation is that local council, they have a statutory obligation to uphold public health promotion. So I'm very interested in that space, specifically around mental health, but also my understanding of my hauora encapsulating the community that is around me, and also the environment as well, which will probably draw into some of your own shared values and aspirations as well, Louise. So for me, rangatahi, we definitely are the future, but we also right now are the ones who actually hold the key and have the voice to inform positive transformational change in the future. So that's why I'm a strong advocate for rangatahi. And even for me, I'm only 24, but I still have to be checking myself, you know, is there someone who is, you know, younger? Is there someone who is, I guess, has more lived experiences in certain areas that could better inform this conversation? So it's also about, I guess, checking yourself and using our platforms to share it with other people who actually need that time to actually speak their truth.
Kia ora.
I definitely find that, like, from my perspective, like, going to university was a huge privilege, and graduating from university was a really huge privilege. And when I look at, to give university students as one example of rangatahi, we only implemented a bus fare for students in the past couple of years, and the University of Waikato has had its like 50-year celebration, and it's like, hold on, what are we doing to support you know, these youth in our community who we know already have, say, a 40-hour week workload with your studies, probably working 1 or 2 part-time jobs on top of that to make ends meet, and yet we don't even have transport support for them to get around the city, and ensuring that they're connected with the rest of the city and don't just end up in Hamiltonese.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's where a lot of my background comes from in terms of understanding the student experience in Hamilton. But I get really, really frustrated as well when we talk about like youth poverty, and especially like student poverty, as if we like culturally accept that because it's only for a few years.
Yeah.
When actually it's like, can you appreciate the toll it takes on your mental health when you're trying to better your situation, you're trying to become more educated, you're trying to give back to your community, especially through, you know, higher education and the research that you do, and yet you're living off
Only rag.
yeah, I was like, you know, food which doesn't sustain you, homes which make you sick, you know, you're not able to get necessarily around the city, you know, you're working jobs which, you know, I know from my experience, like, made ends meet, but often were just like awful experiences of, you know, just whatever I could get that would fit around my studies. But that doesn't mean that you're not uplifting people through that process of education. And especially, like, that's why I say, like, I feel like for myself, like, it was such a privilege to get through it.
Yeah.
And that's with the full acknowledgement of the fact that in some ways I feel like I shouldn't have gone to university because I didn't have the, like, financial means to do it properly and do it well. And that to me is just like, oh, how can we be treating our young people like that? And then when you think about all the people who can't even afford to go to university and what support do we have for them, it's like we're letting down such a significant proportion of our city by simply not thinking about them and not thinking about how we can facilitate their success.
Yeah. That's almost, you're talking about a paradox, right? So, like, people are going to university trying to better themselves, and at the same time, they don't want to challenge their landlord for having insulated homes because they're scared that their tenancy
will be evicted
or that could ruin their chance of central rentals. Like, it's such a distressful time. And I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of managing and coping. For me, myself, I did, like, experience some mental health issues when I was studying university, but I probably didn't realise until I reflected on it a couple of years later, and I thought, fuck, shit, that was actually a really dark time. And, like, where was my support? I was at uni, but I had to wait a month to book in, you know? You know, and, like, what if I don't have the time, or what if whoever is out there that requires some awhi doesn't have that long to wait, you know?
Totally. And I feel like as well, like, when you're talking about the council having a role in, like, maintaining public health.
Absolutely.
And you're looking at all the ways that inequality permeates within the city, and particularly to youth. It's like, the council doesn't necessarily have a role in providing more psychologists, say, or doctors. But I mean, like, you have to look at the underlying causes of mental illness or mental ill health, and realize that, you know, structural inequality especially is such a huge part of that. And I really wish, like, there were points at when I was studying, I studied for 7 years, that, you know, I was getting food parcels from food banks. Like, that's how bad stuff was. And, you know, I've had to go to StudyLink to get money to get, like, a tooth removed. And I remember, like, sitting in that office and, like, having all these printouts to prove that I had no money. And it was just like the bleakest, the most I don't know, dehumanizing. And I think, like, if I could change our city, I would want our experience of being youth to be mana enhancing, rather than be something which you have to suffer through. Like, your youth should not be something you have to suffer through.
Beautifully said. Do you have anything to add to that discussion?
I really can't add. She took it all.
Sorry. We spilled some hot tea there, Louise, and I'm living for it. I just totally was living for that discussion, like on a serious note, and wanted to touch on something that's probably there's been a bit of a narrative around it a little bit on social media, but I want to actually hear from Rangatahi who are standing for local body elections. There has been a huge insurgence, like I'm going to call it the Rangatahi wave.
Yeah.
There's a Rangatahi wave coming of just people putting their hands up left, right and centre. Do you think there is a specific reason for that, or there's a multitude? Please enlighten me.
I feel like you'd have all the tea on this.
I do have opinions, but
and I know you definitely. I guess just a bit of context. So, yes, there is a huge. What is it? Is it hashtag youthquake? That's happening around the motu currently with younger people that are actually standing, and I guess standing within their conviction to actually represent within any local body. I think the notion for now is that there's a lot more organisation, and also having the availability of social media, which is a free medium to actually engage through. So we actually have quite a few resources at our disposal to actually organise
ourselves.
Which is an area that hasn't really been captivated by our more older or incumbent leaders.
Yeah. I think part of it is just like, if you see the like shit that is said about young people by older generations, there's a real like anger at like, you can't say that. Like, it's a gross generalization, you know, that young people are apathetic. And I mean, what I've found is that young people aren't apathetic. Young people are incredibly versed on issues, on racism, on sexism, on, you know, xenophobia, homophobia, everything, you know.
Patriarchy.
And we have to be.
But there's this deep distrust of, like, the political status quo. So, you know, like, I don't see leaders, you know, talking about that in our community who are currently on council. And I think that there's a great, I definitely call it anger from, you know, would all be millennials, but even the people younger than us, you know, if you look at the climate strike crowd, furious at the way that, you know, like our whenua has been treated, how, you know, we get belittled for standing up for what we believe in, we get called, you know, that we have no experience. When, again, going back to what I was talking about before, I mean, when some of my elders went to university, they got fees free.
Or $200 for a degree, you know?
And so it's like, I have a $69,000 student loan. Like, you're not going to be able to speak to my experience of being a student and growing up in this city right now, or even what our political environment is like right now. And so I find it really, I don't know, affirming, I guess, that there is this like collective generational anger that we're not gonna stand by and let this continue because we deserve better. And I think that's something which isn't just about, you know, talking about university students, it's also about you know, looking at te tiriti. How is that enacted in our council? We have Māngai Māori, but it's like, is that partnership? Is that honouring te tiriti? And like, as somebody who's Pākehā, I do not have all the answers to that, but I feel like we need way more allies in council who are willing to defer and say, you know, if you want Māori wards, can we deliver you Māori wards? You know, what would a council or a government or an organisation which was truly about partnership look like, and how can we build that together, because what we've got is not good enough.
Mic drop.
And
that's it. No, seriously, This has been one of something that's been painfully like sitting, brewing in me for ages, and it's just how shite we are, Aotearoa, not even Aotearoa, I think it's a global issue, at succession planning. Like there's just this huge attitude to towards young people, and it's sort of like wait your turn. What you said, you've got no experience, but you're right, we have experience. We've experienced poverty at university, we've experienced watching our natural resources literally degrade before our eyes. We've experienced poor mental health. We can't even buy our own homes. Like it's much harder than it was, say, 30 years ago to just buy a house for $120,000. You know, that's not our reality. And those voices and that lived experience definitely needs to be at the table. So let's get it, guys. If you both were privileged enough, and I really am hoping you guys are, to be awarded these positions on local body government, where do you see where do you see yourself injecting all your aroha towards?
Do you want to start?
Okay, yeah. I will be putting my aroha into our whānau and our community. So for me, it really is about not getting people to engage with council, but actually driving council to be out with our communities. And I think in certain pockets, my current representatives, they are engaging positively, but I'd still see many communities that are disenfranchised from their local bodies of power. So for me, it really is about identifying which key spaces actually need to be not occupied but meaningfully engaged with, and really going to listen. So I feel like I'm a very strong listener, and I'd love to just go and learn and listen, because we have a huge and very vast history within the Waipa, and many coming from opposing sides and in terms of our history. So really learning, drawing on those learnings to be able to inform how we can actually work together in the future. And I am talking about positive partnership with Māori as well. So yeah, really about being, I'd like to think I'm, a young face for the council that could go out and engage with people, and especially encourage younger people to actually see the importance that local government has in playing a role in their lives. This is everything, like drinking water, the toilet we flush down. Everything is relative. But just putting it into a context that is actually to be able to be communicated with different groups. So I feel like I intersect at different areas, so
totally.
I might be able to do that well.
And that sort of would align with your worldview. Holistic, having a holistic worldview, everything is connected. There's no disconnect. Everything influences everything else. So to hear that that's your approach really makes sense to me. So kia ora mai, darling.
Just like tautoko that. Like, I think something that I've really noticed about Hamilton City Council is that there is that disconnect from the general public around just like what it does, what it's doing, what its plans are for the future. Obviously if you're like a big political nerds like us, we read the stuff, we know what's going on, but I think that communication back to the general public around this conversation I've had so many times with people, and I love it because obviously people are really passionate about improving our waste system and our recycling. Hamilton City Council is actually already implementing a really great recycling and waste system next year, where you'll get so many different bins to put stuff in, including for compost. It's so great, but people don't know, so people keep coming to me being like, Louise, so great you're standing, let's fix the recycling. And I'm like, council's already kind of done that. It's not really an issue that I need to have a stance on because it's improving, and so it's really tricky, I think, for people to really engage with council if they don't understand what's already even been done, what's in the works. And so a big part I see of my role is being the go-between or the communicator of, hey, this is what we're working on. And so going out to communities and listening and saying, I hear you, these are your issues, we're working on that. And making sure that when we do make decisions or we do put plans in place, it's communicated back. So that people can, you know, have faith in your representatives and, you know, build back some trust, because that's a really big thing that I've noticed, is just that supreme lack of trust with what our elected officials are up to.
Specifically here in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, no, I totally took both of yous. You know, I really need to get some people who aren't as like-minded in me, so I can have a bit of a whittle, a challenge in me. But no, seriously, I do see the value in everything that you guys say, and I don't want to bind you to a specific kōpapa, because if that's actually not, I feel, open to everything, as a lot of millennials are.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember as well, and I've had this conversation with people a lot, because they're like, well, what are you going to do in council? And it's like, I'm going to be one voice of 13. I can't promise you anything because at the end of the day, if I don't have consensus, I can't get that through. And so I'm making empty promises, and actually I'm eroding your trust. And that's the opposite of what I want to do. And so, yeah, I can tell you that I want to address climate action. I want to address inequality, especially around transport and housing. I want to make our city more beautiful. I want to, you know, champion high density housing, especially in our CBD. But I can't promise you any of those things. I can only tell you what my vision of the city would look like. And so you can vote for somebody who you know will vote yes for those things, but it's not a promise. And it's a bit tricky. I think we're kind of used to, in some ways, politicians promising the world.
Everything.
And yet, when I say I don't want to do that because I can't necessarily deliver, people are like, what? But I think it's again about just resetting the expectations. So what does council actually do? So what is the scope of changes that I could make? And, you know, Waipa especially is much more rural than Hamilton City. And I mean, I think for both of us as well, we've got to collaborate with regional council. That's really critical.
That's how you said that you try not to make any empty promises. I think that might just be reflective of our generation, you know. We've been, I don't know if social media has definitely, because it's interesting, I actually had a conversation with someone on Instagram, and they said, you know what's sad, I'm actually learning more online on Insta than I ever did at school in terms of our own history. So I think it's actually making us more, as a generation, empathetic, understanding, transparent. Like all of these values are pretty much encapsulated in the values that you guys have just shared and the position and the stance you're going to take moving forward in your campaign. So just want to acknowledge that. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. And also, this is my favourite part. Let's spill some tea, guys. So I usually, whānau, send Louise herself asked if I could send a brief out, and I'd just like to again emphasize that when we do ask people to come in and share their time, that if I can be as accommodating in this role as possible, then I'm definitely here for that. So I acknowledge that and sent out a brief, asked them to spill some tea, and literally people will interpret it how they want. So what are you guys' automatic thoughts?
Where to start?
I don't know. Oh, like about myself, about my life.
Anything, my darling.
Local council. Spill some tea. I feel like I should have. I had the brief. I had the brief, but I'm not too sure. I don't know. Would you like to go first?
I think to maintain our uplifting positivity. I think that it's been really incredible for me to work with people like Cassidy, to work with people like Sarah Thompson, and especially there's so many incredible candidates running around the country, knowing that campaigning campaigning is awful. It's like a marathon with homework. And knowing
Wow, that was good.
knowing that, you know, like there are other people going through this who are just as angry and frustrated, and turning that anger and frustration into action and like strategic action, to me is like really validating. And I think as well it's been really special to see other women who are supportive, who want to, and especially in the like young new candidate space, you know, it's not about competing with each other, it's about supporting us, like each other, so that we can, you know, get the best result. And it's I've definitely not so seen that with incumbents, and so I think that it's a really great knowledge that we're also changing the political culture of candidacy in of itself.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be able to collaborate, and it makes me
Absolutely.
really, really sad when people say, oh, what do you think about this candidate? And I have to say, well, I haven't seen them be collaborative in this campaign process. I've only seen them be, you know, petty or childish, or, you know, tearing down other candidates instead of, you know, finding ways to work together. Because even if you're politically different, you should still have common goals, unless you're, you know, right off the political spectrum. And you know, that collaboration is what makes council really effective. And so that to me is one of the most important things about my candidacy, is how can I show collaboration between different people, because that's how you get the best. Was that shady enough?
No, I loved it.
No, I love
And I
it.
let people like literally whatever they feel. I don't want it to be forced. If it's literally what you felt, your wider felt like you needed to say that, then fabulous, sis.
I guess the tea that I'll spill.
In this essay, I will.
Because there was a prompt in terms of if you could speak to your 16-year-old self, what would you say? So I think I'll refer back to that. So 16, so I was still at Awamutu College. For me, that would have still been quite, from what I can remember, would have been, I guess, a turning point, because, you know, like NCA level 1, you know, within the high schools, they really drill it into you that, you know, everything you do will be setting you up for your future career, so you need to choose what subjects you're going to do.
Also, conform.
But, you know, what about people who are passionate about more than just one area? So I think for me, and I wouldn't change anything about my life up until now, I think it would really just be a matter of encouraging myself to actually reach out and ask for help. Because I think, and it's really, really powerful what you've said about, you know, collaboration, and that, you know, that's really been a driver of success for many of the younger candidates around the motu that are standing. But without people like yourself actually, you know, reaching out to me, you know, asking me if I need any support with anything, you know, or even, also here's some tea, if you didn't actually know, Louise actually was the one who constructed the accessible Excel spreadsheet that had everything. It was so comprehensive. It had candidates' names, the wards, you know, which district or city council, their Facebook page, everything, you know, like, which has been, you know, referred to and has been an awesome, I guess, like, God document for other people who are standing, and also, I guess, profiling the legitimacy of people as well. So, you know, that's cool, like, power and organisation.
Power and spreadsheets.
Exactly. So, you know, if it weren't for, I guess me engaging, being able to ask for help, or for even Louise for offering to support, you know, like, it's about having that positive communication, between people.
Oh my darling, I've got some tea.
Oh.
So I acknowledge that there's obviously like intergenerational barriers that have been faced, but Māori have the lowest voter turnout My tea is, get your ass to that voting booth.
Yep.
E te iwi. There's so many young, motivated, inspiring, passionate about the taiao, empathetic, everything you could ever imagine being a leader. Because leadership and age, whatever. So get out there, let your voice be heard, exercise your democratic rights. For too long, I've seen Johns everywhere. Isn't there like...
It's, there's more people named John or Michael.
Oh, Michael.
Than there are people, I think, under the age of...
30?
Yeah.
In Tauranga, right?
Oh,
Or is
across
it
New
everywhere?
Zealand.
In local government. There you go. There's your tea.
Yeah.
More Johns, more Michaels on local government than there are people under 30 on local government. So if you're out there moaning, you better be ticking something as well, partner. That's my tea. That's the sassiest I've ever gotten on this thing.
No, that's so important. And I always say to people, like, you know, there's this disconnect between not having candidates who represent us or who understand us or who bother to talk to our communities. And so when you see candidates from those communities actually standing, you have to get out and vote for them, because it's really difficult being in that candidate space. If no one gives a shit and no one votes, what are you saying to the future, you know, your future candidates who are thinking like, oh, should I do this?
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's about, for me at least, it's about how can I get into this organization and hold space to make it more inclusive, because people do ask me all the time, they're like, oh, Louise, you know, you talk about diversity, like, so voting for you is going to solve that. And I'm like, no, like, yes, I am a queer Pākehā woman with disabilities who is young, but I'm not Māori. I'm not Pacifica. I am not religious. There are lots of other demographics who need to feel safe in that environment who don't currently. And so diversity is not a thing you can solve with one person. And we need a better voter turnout to like enact that. And that's a really big part of what I've been trying to say to people is like, hey, one, make sure you're enrolled. Two, make sure you get your voting documents out of your mailbox, actually open them. You get information on who's standing. You know, it's all provided there for you, and you don't have to use all your votes. In Hamilton City, you have 1 vote for mayor, and you have up to 6 votes for your ward.
Up to 6.
Yeah, you do not have to use all your votes, and especially if you want to. With the electoral system that we use, only vote for the people that you love, because all your votes count the same. So if you vote for people you think are great and people you think are alright, that's counted as equal weight. So only vote for the people you really want to see get in, and you know, make sure you put it back in the post by, I think it's October 5th.
Cool.
Yeah. How many votes for your ward?
There's 4 seats that are available. Yeah.
And 1 mayoralty.
And, well, he ran unchallenged.
Okay, just kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So that could be, you know, a question in itself of the state of democracy within the Waipa. But, yeah, from my knowledge, our mayor has been very supportive of myself and all of the kaupapa that I hold dear. Yeah, so.
Yeah. I heard somebody questioning something somewhere about if you do run unchallenged, you should still have to get a certain percentage of the vote in order to show it's not a vote of no confidence. Because I mean, in Hamilton, to be the mayor, last election it was 8,000 votes.
Wow.
So when people are like, oh, you're running for the mayoralty, I'm like, well, it's not like it's hard.
Wow.
Like 8,000 votes.
Compared to, what's the population in Hamilton?
Over 160,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So in lots of ways, it is like, is that a vote of no confidence, you know?
Yeah.
Because what's that as a percentage of our total population?
Yeah. Wow.
Next to nothing.
Also kind of reflective of the type of people that, you know, with all respect to our current mayor, it is reflective of the type of people who are out there voting, so they won't be the students who are struggling with with their own poverty, with mental health. They'll just be trying to get by. I think without being presumptuous, it will be people who have a bit of free time and have the resources, or just
just the housing security,
absolutely,
to always be enrolled at the right place.
Wow,
You
that's
know?
a great point too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And not just for local, but for central government as well.
Very,
very important, which is a wider conversation for next year with the elections coming up as well.
And I mean, I'd love to kind of like mobilise a youth voter base where we expect better and we get better candidates from expecting better, and we change that system so that, we don't have 33% voter turnout. That's like one of the lowest in the country as well, So not only is it bad, it's like contextually bad as well. But an interesting thing is, in Australia, for the marriage equality vote, they had something like over 90% enrollment for youth.
Wow.
So it was clearly like an issue that they were like, we're gonna get out
and get involved.
And so I'd like to think that having candidates who can speak to youth issues, who can have empathy for what our communities are going through, will hopefully mobilise a base. But I know in Hamilton, I don't know about Waipa, but enrolments are up 6%.
Wow.
And so it's kind of interesting as well, because we've gone from 80% enrolled to 86% enrolled.
Wow.
So we have quite high enrollment, relatively speaking. I mean, whether those papers are going to go to the right address, another question. But you really do just have to get out there and tick those forms and put it in a post box. And I believe you can Google where a post box is.
Everything, you can access everything on Google. And what I heard there was a bit of a whittle or a challenge. Sounds like we heard youth mobilisation, government 2020 elections. That's what I heard. So kua taku so te manu ka tātou mā. Lastly, do you guys have any more comments? Anything you definitely want to drive home before we wrap up?
I think my emphasis would really be to get to know who is standing in your local elections, and reach out to them, challenge them, ask them what they stand for. If they are an incumbent, ask them, what contributions in the past they've made to the community, what their past stances have been. Get an understanding of who they are, because we've got some amazing people who are standing. And it would definitely be a shame to see that energy not met and reciprocated in terms of the diverse communities that we're wanting to have at the table that are passionate and ready to go. So, and, our elected officials should be accessible. We're very privileged in Aotearoa to actually, be able to, catch a bus and be able to speak to Marama Davidson. Or even go to Raglan and you'll see Jamie out surfing or something. So,
I definitely agree with that in terms of like, know your candidates. Like, just because somebody says some buzzwords doesn't mean that they know their shit. Make sure that you're challenging your potential representatives, whether they are us or whether they are other people, because I think you really need to make sure that you're not voting for people who just sound good on paper, because you want to make sure that that vote you give them is meaningful, and you don't want to feel let down by them, I guess. Because not every candidate is the same. Not every candidate goes into it with the same commitment to the kaupapa. And what I really want to do next local body election, is have a group of candidates who are closely collaborating on what's called a ticket. And so if you see Cassidy out. You know that Cassidy is part of, as an example, a part of this organisation, and you see me out, you know that I'm part of this organisation, and you see, you know, 4 or 5 other candidates out, you know, we're all working together, we all share that kaupapa, we all are working towards the same goals, and so there's kind of, not only can we share resources between us, but there's also a validation of, you know, they're going to work well together, and you know they're going to collaborate because they're collaborating right now in the election. And so if you're a young person who is interested in local body, get in touch with me, because I want to find more candidates for next election, and I want to support as many as I can to get in and to change that, because it's only when we have a majority or hold more space that we're going to be able to really get stuff done. And I mean, when you look at the breakdown of our city, we deserve more than one seat at that table. So
Kia ora.
That's such a thing. Kia ora. Well, ki te whakakape tēnei kōrero, tēnei te mihi kia kōrua, kua whai wā ki te whakapau wera, ki te whakapau whakaaro hoki mo tēnei kaupapa o Spillin Tī Rangatahi. Heoi, ko te kaupapa matua me ki ko te whakawhanaketanga o ngai rangatahi. So I just want to acknowledge you guys for taking the time. I know you guys are probably so busy campaigning, so I really, really am grateful. But as I said earlier in Te Reo Māori, it's not just for this kaupapa of spilling tea with rangatahi, but actually making the rangatahi narrative so accessible to rangatahi. Ahakoa nohea, ahakoa kōwai. So it doesn't matter where you're from, your socio-economic background, what a walk of life you have, but I just want this narrative to really be heard, and not on mainstream sort of outlets. But I love the project. I really do.
it's a different kōrero.
A little bit quirky, eh? I'd take it a lot.
Yeah.
And so just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And just lastly, where am I looking? There. Lastly, this is my last plug. For those of you ngai rangatahi mā, ngai Māori, tino whakaaro ana mō te tuku i tō pōhi. If you're still considering voting as a Māori, as a young person, please get up there. Our voice, as we heard, really needs to be at that table. And the only way it can be is if we do exercise our right to vote and be a part of the discussion. Yeah.
And if you're not enrolled, you can request special voting papers from council and make sure that you're still heard.